Hi, everyone. Harry here to talk about a blistering opinion by a district court judge, not simply ruling against the Trump administration, but calling them out as liars and scofflaws and as essential ignoramuses who don't understand or at least don't safeguard the Constitution, which is very fundamentally presented. All right, the order here, Trump actually issued an order in which he makes a distinction between foreign people here and citizens with respect to their First Amendment rights or attempts to. So he already knew he was flying into the face of a buzzsaw. It is absolutely canonical, well established, not subject to any doubt whatsoever that anyone here has First Amendment rights and is protected by the Constitution. But they pulled this kind of gambit preparatory to trying to deport or at least make trouble for people who had participated in pro-Gaza demonstrations, foreign nationals who had so participated. And the basic idea was to try to dilute their First Amendment rights, and then from there, with that dilution, move on and try to basically say these groups were supporting terrorism, that being Hamas, or otherwise doing things that the First Amendment wouldn't protect, but as an extra added measure, they are lowering the First Amendment bar. Enter Judge Young of the District of Massachusetts, a Reagan appointee, been on the bench 45 years and says he's never had a more important case. He held a 9-day trial a few weeks ago. Always such an important point. District courts are there on the ground, hear testimony and the like. And when courts of appeals blithely reverse them without having the flavor of what went down and what the facts are, it's, I think, can be very irresponsible, let's say. But Young just comes out of the box and clobbers the administration. To give you a sense, the actual 161-page opinion that he issued had a special little graphic on the front page. He actually puts on a postcard recently in his chambers from a MAGA-ite, a threat, 19th of June. Trump has pardons and tanks. So whatever you do, we're going to pardon. What do you have, right? It's actually almost a sort of sophisticated thing from a MAGA-ite, the pardons point. What do you have? But it's just, such a crass assault. And he answers it. On the cover of the opinion, Dear Mr. or Ms. Anonymous, alone, I have nothing but my sense of duty. Together, we, the people of the United States, you and me, have our magnificent Constitution. Here's how that works out in a specific case. So, man, oh man, really pushing back on not just Trump and the administration, but the whole kind of MAGA culture, which poses such risks, including of sort of free agent attacks by MAGA-ites who are opposed to anything that is reversing Trump. Okay, 161 pages. A whole history of, I gave orders as we were doing this. You said you would comply. You didn't. You were bobbing and weaving and faking. And we know this. They've done this in case after case where they decide what to do at the Stephen Miller level. And then some poor schmuck of a DOJ lawyer has to go in not knowing anything, but they're not, nobody cares that they actually have the real skinny on what the administration is doing. And then later the administration just breaks the rules. So for Young, that's like again and again, you said you'd get your act together. You said this wouldn't happen, that wouldn't happen. Guess what? It did. And the opinion is by turn sonorous and sort of heavy, very sort of solemnly proclaiming of the Constitution, the importance and value of our Constitution, and then by turn biting and excoriating. We're just slapping the administration, basically saying you're lying. And by the way, of course, they have First Amendment rights that you are ignoring. You're trying basically to use the foreign status as a pretext to get at First Amendment suppression. You may not do that. If it's a First Amendment violation, it doesn't matter whether these are non-U.S. nationals. It's a First Amendment violation. And there's a lot of going through it and a lot of tongue wagging, a lot of shame on you, administration in the United States, actually suggests that part of what they're doing is just trying to stall and get sort of be able to do what they want temporarily as they have in other areas, and then things be fact on the ground, maybe deport and the like. So, you have a group of plaintiffs here who are just in general, all kinds of associations of this professors. We've got from, Harvard and all over, really the academic elite of the country that are some, are included as some of the people whom the administration is trying to single out and make easier to deport, suing Marco Rubio, suing Kristi Noem, and basically saying, you guys have second rank status, First Amendment protections. And so Young, again, Reagan appointee, again, 45-year veteran on the bench saying this is the most important thing I've ever had. Again, putting on the front of the actual opinion his own kind of graphic demonstrating the stakes here, and that, it's the Constitution and the rule of law that protects us and the people here that you're trying to basically short circuit the rights of. So there is a kind of ongoing cultural part of this and tug of war where he's really taking the administration to task and saying you're ignoring our magnificent Constitution and the tone of it, of a district court saying, I was here, I had a long trial, I questioned witnesses, you guys are full of it, and you're bobbing and weaving and trying to disobey. Shame on you. And so the different criticisms of Trump and the administration are just completely scathing. And that's going to really stand out about this opinion, which, of course, the White House denounced as outrageous, that hampers the safety and security of our nation. But you have Young, again, Reagan appointee, been there a long time, but he has in general tangled with the administration. But anyway, he called Trump a bully who ignores everything and engages in hollow bragging and uses his bully pulpit to strip away constitutional rights. How's this for a killer quote? The president's palpable misunderstanding that the government simply cannot seek retribution for speech he disdains poses a great threat to American freedom of speech, he writes. And he actually goes on kind of adverting the whole sort of situation and approach to civil war it sometimes seems we are in, saying, I fear, this is his words in the opinion, President Trump believes the American people are so divided that today they will not stand up, fight for, and defend our most precious constitutional values so long as they are lulled into thinking their own personal interests are not affected. And he wonders if that's correct. So that's not only a very sobering kind of quote, but it goes outside the four corners by a lot. What it reminds me of course, is that just yesterday, Trump, before an assembled group of generals out of Nuremberg, says there's a war within and there's an enemy within and it's the left. And, it's very much just what Young is saying. So that's the headline. Young did, by the way, say he'll have further proceedings to see exactly how to administer and respond to the specific claims that come from a lot of professors and others. But these are the folks like the ultimate people who are affected, like Khalil from Colombia and others. And so we have the ruling today and remedial proceedings still to come. And he's, dealing with lawless children, which is who this administration and this executive branch actually is. So you will see that, this will be one of the hallmark opinions, one of the sort of clearest instance of a district court really pushing back on the administration. We'll see what happens here, as in all these cases. So often higher courts have just kicked the lower courts in the teeth and not respected, their really basic function and the superior vantage point that Young has, because he had a trial, a 9-day trial, and listened to witnesses and the like. So we will see what will happen. But above Young in the District of Massachusetts, it's the First Circuit, which has been pretty strongly progressive. And then, of course, the Supreme Court. Now, this is enough of an emphatic opinion, and we're talking about immigration. Stephen Miller's number one focus anyway. So if you're of the mindset that Miller is really running the show, something that the administration is more likely to push for Supreme Court emergency review, could happen. It could get wiped out. It would be a real sort of disservice to Judge Young. But for now, what we have is 161 pages of just really, really sticking it to the administration for its complete derogation of the Constitution and the First Amendment, and really taking them to task. Talk to you later. Thanks for tuning in. If you enjoyed this video and other Talking Feds content, please take a second to like and subscribe. Talk to you later.